You're gonna push my buttons up.
What's happening, everybody? Happy Monday and welcome to the Rookie Rundown. Hope you're having a great weekend. It is your host, it is Memphis, and you can follow me on Twitter at DWZ Memphis. On tonight's show, there is going to be no Dallas. Dallas is off getting ready for the real world. But since we were already doing a show entitled The Full Medical Report with Dr. Kyle, aka Dr. Kyle Balzer, I'll just go ahead and introduce him. I'll introduce him the same way I introduce him on the Fabulous Big Bet, and that is as the dirtiest player in the game today. Dr. Kyle, man, thanks for jumping on with me.
Happy to. It's not in a podcasting groove like we get to in the middle of the season, which is it's a little nice. Like I had a little bit of an itch to podcast again with you. It would have been nice to be on here with Dallas too. I haven't enjoyed him in the podcast universe yet, but soon enough, I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about between now and week one, the draft, whatever. But yeah, excited to talk injuries and rookies. That's the hot topic.
For sure, and we want to make sure that we talk about these guys before we draft them on our teams with rookie season. I mean, literally, it is the end of March as we're recording this, and we'll be into April, and April's the month of the draft. It's amazing how fast this year has went by. And before we get into the body of the show, I just want to thank everybody for the reviews, especially over on Apple. I know not everybody is on Apple Podcast, but that's the big one, but still we're well over 215 now combined. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform that allows you to give us a review, it would be greatly appreciated. It is the fastest way. So when you search Dynasty Fantasy Football, the more reviews we have, the more it pulls us to the top of the list. That's the importance of it. It's an algorithm. Speaking of algorithms, I cussed the one on Twitter the other night for keep force feeding me the Suicide Squad sequel trailer over and over again. Damn it. But I do want to read a positive review. I'll read any review. If you write them, I'll read them. This podcast provides great fantasy advice, but even better entertainment. Genuinely cares about their supporters and actually listens to feedback. And that is currently constructed by Cole McGregor 54. So Cole, thank you so much for taking a minute to check out the review capabilities of the podcast world and helping us out. So you can also check us out on social media. I'm at DWZ Memphis. He is at DWZ_ Dr. PT. The show is on everything at Dynasty Warzone, Instagram, Twitter. And Dr. Kyle, before I get into anything funky, I want to ask you about the FF Fit Club. So you're seeing a lot of people, myself, Ray Garvin, Troy King, last week's guest from the Dynasty Warzone. So many people, man. I don't want to start going through everybody because I'll forget somebody and then I'll feel about we big. So, Dr. Kyle, you have been joining in the FF Fit Club. What are you thinking about this movement on Twitter?
Yeah, I don't know what spurred it, what brought it on, but I saw somebody posting about it. I'm like, I can get on board with this. Already active most days of the week. This is one more way to hold myself accountable and maybe help some other people be accountable. And just, I don't know, there's enough shit and negativity in the world. Like, let's promote something good for once on Twitter.
Well, you stole mine, man. Yeah, it's always something negative on Twitter. And, you'll see me and Ray and Cody Carpentier. You'll see us do some knuckleheaded shit. Ray is the king of the kettlebell. Cody, man, that guy.
I gotta see that. I am a I don't know how to say this, but I'm a kettlebell guy.
At Ray GQ on Twitter. My man Cody Carpentier of Roto Underworld, another Dynasty Warzone previous guest, posted a video of himself squatting 655 pounds. So not everybody's into that, guys. Sometimes it's as simple as going for 3 walks a day or 2 walks a day and just getting out. And I think it's rad that guys like Troy and Ray have included me as part of this group of people that are trying to get a group that quite honestly is very sedentary at times, the fantasy football community. I love my phone as much as anybody. Ask my wife, she will attest. But it's not always about that, man. Like I said, if you want to go to a gym and you want to bro out, go for it. You want to join a CrossFit, go for it. You want to go to Zumba, whatever. But whatever you do, I'm happy to be part of a movement that's just encouraging people to work. And real quick, I want to encourage everybody to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. My opinion, the best value in Dynasty fantasy football. Guys, it's $5 a month. $5 a month. We are starting leagues next weekend. They kind of auto-fired one this morning. Whatever. We got her going. Hey, at the end of the day, the people demanded Patreon leagues, so we gave them Patreon leagues.
They're gonna unionize before we know it.
Dude, I thought they were going to burn my house down. I mean, I get it, but the one thing about the Patreon leagues is that if it's a Patreon league, I'm responsible for it. I'm responsible for making sure that the rules are adhered to. I'm making sure that the money is collected on time. I'm making sure that trades are fair. I'm making sure that at the end of the year, the winners get paid out on time. There's a lot that goes into being a Patreon and doing Patreon shit. So if that interests you, you want to hang out with a group of rad people like me, like Dr. Kyle, and dozens and dozens and dozens of others, just check out Dynasty Warzone Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. But I don't want to belabor the point. We got a good guest. We're 6 minutes in. That's a good number. People like it when we make the intro short. The biggest thing to take away from the intro, it's not the Patreon, it's not the stuff, it's the FF Fit Club. Get after it, guys. I really want to see you live better lives. As much as I'm not wanting to, as much as we're getting ready to make your Dynasty season better, I would rather see you live a healthier, a happier existence. So, Dr. Kyle, man, we're going to talk about some of these rookies now. But before we go any further, just tell these people a little bit about what you do for a living. Your Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, if you will.
Well, I wish it was a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I kid. I actually have set myself up with a really great gig and a quality of life. I am a physical therapist in New York City, but licensed in 4 states. I've traveled for football players. I work with a number of pro guys. Been working for 8 years. Pretty seasoned at this point, which is weird to say. Just turned 33. Holy shit. Connected with some pretty good docs here in New York City. Very grateful to do what I do. Love what I do. Just every day grateful that I get to give back to people, whether it's a professional athlete or just your run-of-the-mill like weekend warrior, golfers, ballerinas, etc. Training people, getting people back from injury, or training people around an injury, or teaching them to just move. It's awesome. I love it. And I love that I get to now marry that with fantasy football and shoot the shit with Memphis from time to time and Maddie and the crew. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're part of the team. That's great. That's the great thing about having a team at the DWZ. Dallas is out tonight. He has got real life stuff that he just couldn't get away from. We respect that.
Neurochemistry studying. I have no doubt he would much rather be here right now.
Well, I'm glad that you said I couldn't even pronounce it. That's how fucking smart you guys are. But I'm not. That's okay though. It's okay. It's good to know that I've surrounded myself with really, really intelligent guys. Like Kyle, like Dallas, Jerry, Maddie, the whole crew. Kyle, Jake, Tyler, and Lou. I don't want to leave anybody out. I went on a roll, so I might as well just name the whole shoot
with
match.
The gimpy leg.
Mo with the gimpy leg. So we're gonna speaking of
I hope
gimpy
somebody
leg,
gets that reference.
So we're gonna get into some guys with some gimpy legs. Now we have picked 6, and I'm gonna hit you with a surprise 7th. I'm gonna hit you with a guy, and we talked about this briefly before I hit the record button. Any concerns at all with Trevor Sunshine Lawrence with his surgery on his non-throwing shoulder? Now, every surgery is minor when it's not being done to you. That's what I've always been told. But any concerns at all, non-throwing shoulder injury for a man named Sunshine?
I mean, 99% of the time, no. There's always a 1% chance that and this is where, there's no definite, there's no yes, no, everything is gray. You're going to hear me, back up things and play devil's advocate in different ways with everybody. If he ends up with, if he somehow ends up in the hands of a shit surgeon or a shit PT or shit athletic trainer, and they don't prioritize the right things, it could come back to bite him in the ass at some point, whether it's this year, next year, 10 years. But ultimately, non-throwing, even if it was his throwing shoulder, he's a kid still. He's just coming out of college. Those guys, they bounce back quick, especially the ones that are truly dedicated to what they do, which I'm pretty sure Trevor Lawrence is. Yeah, there's so much time between when he had the surgery, I believe, and when he's going to have to actually sling it downfield for Jacksonville, presumably.
Well,
No concerns.
I don't think Jacksonville's going to come off that pick. That franchise and ownership group has done some dumb stuff over the years, but you finally got a chance to get the quarterback position right. I would like to think that they wouldn't screw this up, but I could totally see them taking Justin Fields and just submarining the whole thing, which would be great. As a Colts fan, I would love not to have Trevor Lawrence in our division for the next 15 plus years. But I want to hit you with another quarterback. Now, this guy has had a couple of knee injuries. He's a guy that came out of college. No, excuse me, came out of high school into college, somewhat fairly highly touted. If I remember correctly, it was Tua, and then it was this guy, and this guy's name is Davis Mills. Now, Kyle, I know he's had a couple of knee injuries. Do you want to kind of elaborate on what's going on with Mr. Mills?
Yeah, so actually, I like to thank Dallas because to prep myself for the show, I actually reached out to the Patreon and our team group. Jesus Christ, that might be like a month or two ago already, and just ask guys, who do you want to know's injury history? Like, just throw names at me. Like, I had I'm a Dynasty guy, but I don't have my ear to the ground on rookies. Everybody knows like the general top 10, 12, 24, whatever it may be. And Dallas told me about Davis Mills, and I was like, who? I did my research on him this weekend. Come to find out, actually, yeah, I think he was neck and neck with Tua as far as high school grade goes, and then had a pretty traumatic knee surgery in the state championship of his senior year before he went to Stanford. And I didn't find any like specific details on everything, but I know he had that knee surgery. That required knee surgery, was pretty traumatic and took some time to recover. And I believe he was a redshirt freshman, or redshirted as a freshman at Stanford. And then whatever the first season he started for Stanford, I believe he had another traumatic knee injury and surgery that required pretty extensive rehab. And, from some of the quotes I read about it, he didn't get down about it. He very much was like, hey, coach, been through this once. I'll go through it again. It is what it is, and going to come back stronger. And it sounds like he had a pretty strong pro day recently, which would be great. I don't know where anybody has him ranked as far as pro football, like quarterback or pre-draft rankings goes. But if this guy gets any sort of decent draft capital, I feel like if a guy like this, if he can get drafted into the right organization and somehow find his way into the field, whether it's an injury or, he's in a battle with a Drew Lock or probably not going to be a Jimmy G, but one of these.
Teddy Bridgewater.
There you go. Great. Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater. Andy Dalton.
Yes. Cam Newton.
There you
go. If he ends up in an organization with a quarterback like that, I think, and he gets third round draft capital, I think it'd be like wheels up for him. He sounds like he's fast. He's mobile. I think that's going to be the interesting piece for his future and his career, is a guy that's already got two pretty significant knee surgeries under his belt, and he's mobile. He's going to have to go to the Russell Wilson school of sliding probably and getting out of bounds. But I tell you what, after what I saw and read, like, I'll probably be grabbing and stashing him in leagues, whether it's 4th or 5th, 6th round rookie drafts if he's there.
I'd say that's something I'm going to be looking to do too. Both him and Kellen Mond. Now, Kellen Mond doesn't have the injury history, but man, in Superflex, do I really want to take a super deep flyer on like the 38th wide receiver in this class, or maybe a guy that, again, pretty talented coming out. It may never turn to anything. I just know that if that 38th wide receiver hits his pinnacle versus a guy like Davis Mills hits, I started calling Miles Davis the famous jazz musician, but if Davis Mills hits his ceiling versus a random wide receiver hitting theirs, I've got a lot better chip in a dynasty league. So, okay, cool. Let's go to the running back position. Another guy out of Oklahoma State. He probably is kicking himself in the ass with his bad foot and ankle for not coming out in 2020. Doc, what do you got on Chuba Hubbard? What's the medical report saying with Mr. Hubbard?
Yeah, so again, it's a weird year, obviously, with COVID and scheduling and this and that. It seemed like also college football injuries were a little bit more vague than they have been in the past, or because, this is my first off season with the Dynasty Warzone, talking about rookies with injuries. Now I'm finding out that college football injuries are much reported like NHL injuries of, yes, he's out with a lower body injury or he's out with an upper body injury. Super vague, not nearly as descriptive as we get with the NFL. So yeah, you talked about how he's probably kicking himself in the arse based on he had a stud like 2019. I think the contractor I did with you, the inaugural contractor I did with you last year, we were talking about I had like a late first pick and maybe it being Chuba Hubbard if he came out. And then he didn't. He went back to Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State, I don't know if they graduated a good chunk of their offensive line or graduated and opted out because of COVID. But this man came back to school with a very, just a crap offensive line relative to last year. And also, like, Oklahoma State had some weird stuff in the, I don't know if it was last offseason or whatever.
No, I know where you're going.
Their
it was
coach
this
is a bit of
offseason.
their coaches. There was a disconnect. Let's just leave it at this. There seemed to be at one point maybe a political or social issue that divided coach and players. And so that, Chuba came out and, he didn't have the great start to follow up his great 2019 campaign and ultimately ended up with a foot or ankle injury. I think he played through it a little bit for a game or two and then ultimately was seen in a walking boot on the sideline of the TCU game. And then shortly after that, opted out for the rest of the season. But in 2019, he carried the ball 328 times for 2,094 yards and 21 touchdowns, and also contributed 23 receptions for 198 yards in the passing game. I'm not here to tell you that he's injury prone. I'm not going to tell you that about any of these guys. If we look back at previous guys who thought maybe we know Nick Chubb has a bit of a knee injury history, but he's been pretty good. I think he got injured this past season. Todd Gurley had a pretty significant history in college, and up until recently, he was a stud. I think this injury might be, and granted, there's a lot of things that are going to go into it, where you're going to draft him. But again, you're going to hear me say like third round draft capital. Like day one is round one, day two is rounds 2 and 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7 are day 3. There's a line drawn in the sand of if you're a day 1 or 2 guy versus a day 3 guy. If Chuba ends up on a team, I don't care what team so much as if he gets third round draft capital, that could be a way to very sneakily get somebody later in your draft, maybe early mid second in Superflex, with some serious upside. This guy was a stud last year, and it like sometimes that's just how it goes, and it sucks that he's he literally is going to lose has lost life-changing money because he quote unquote probably did the right thing to go back to school last year as far as maybe education or trying to improve upon his 2019 season, and didn't. And that's just the way it goes. He's not the only one that did that. So I'm not necessarily. It's weird that we don't know what his injury is. If he had like a Liz Frank injury or like a pretty severe midfoot sprain, maybe there's some concern this year. But ultimately, he's a young guy. All these guys get injured at some point. They all have gotten injured. They all will get injured. I'm not going to label any of them injury prone. But I think Hubbard is a great guy to get at probably a discount, especially if he gets the draft capital that we want.
All right. Well, you answered my follow-up question before I can ask you, so this wouldn't stop you. You're more concerned with where he actually gets drafted in the NFL draft as opposed to any potential lingering foot injury. Okay, so that's a good one. All right, we're going to shift to the wide receiver position because we want to cycle through a few of these. So we have a guy. He came back in the national championship game after missing the majority of the season last year. in wide receiver from Alabama, Jaylen Waddle. Now, what was the exact nature of his injury, and what are your thoughts on that injury going into draft season? Because Jaylen Waddle is still seen as a top 15, we'll call it top 15-ish pick in the NFL draft. So it doesn't appear that teams are leaking to the mock drafters that this injury is very severe, but I would love to hear a medical professional's take.
Yeah, so I believe it was a combination left high ankle sprain, so damage to ligaments and probably muscles, tendons. The syndesmosis is the connective tissue between the fibula and tibia. So that's usually a part of the high ankle sprain, which is why it's takes so much longer to rehab relative to a low ankle sprain or your traditional inversion ankle sprain. But he also suffered a pretty severe ankle fracture. Luckily for his NFL career and his draft capital, it happened pretty early in the football season. I think prior to the injury, I don't know how many games it was, maybe 4. The injury happened in October, and pre-injury, he had 28 for 591 yards and 4 touchdowns. Do you know how many games it was specifically, Memphis?
It was 3 or 4. It wasn't more than 4 that I recall. I'm not the biggest watcher of college football, especially in season. I'm helping people with Patreon rosters. I'm getting ready for Sunday shows. It's
making money
an
on
art.
The fabulous big bet.
It's booking the rookie rundown and the prop cast. Just a lot going on in season, so I don't recall, but I just know that he gutted it out in the national championship game. So just another one that I'm not concerned with. Just so far, it feels like we're 3 for 3 that NFL draft capital is going to tell way more of the tale on these guys than their injury history ever actually will. Because you have to remember, we talk about things being baked in when Dr. Kyle and I are talking about gambling on the Big Bet podcast. A lot of things are baked into the number. Like if Dak doesn't play for the Cowboys, that's baked into the number by Vegas. Where these guys are drafted and in what round, their injury history is baked into that draft capital. Because what we know is way more limited than what these NFL teams know. So if it's being leaked to the Daniel Jeremiahs and Bucky Brooks and all these folks who write mock drafts for a living, Mel Kiper Jr., Todd McShay, if it's being leaked that these guys are going in the top 15, a guy like Jalen Waddle, then I can't be overly concerned if the NFL medical staffs, not that I don't trust my own resident expert here, Dr. Kyle, but that's going to go a long way. Now, one that I do have a concern with, because this was a stat that you gave me, that Rondale Moore has only played 7 games in the last 2 years. Now, he did the opt-in hokey pokey during the 2020 season. He opted in, he opted out again, and didn't play a lot. And the year before, he had some injury issues. So tell us about Mr. Rondale Moore's injuries and any concerns for you.
Yeah, so I now understand why Rondale Moore is such a polarizing guy on Twitter. The dude balled out his freshman season, 114 receptions for 1,258 yards and 12 touchdowns. And then after that, only played 7 games over 2 seasons. In 2019, I don't know how many games he missed that year, but he had his hamstring issue, and he's known he's known for his speed. So, I don't want to say put him in the Will Fuller bucket, because everybody is in their own bucket, and what else is in that bucket we don't even know. Like we just talked about it. There's the medical teams for each NFL team is getting way more information than we are. If you think back to my first ever Dynasty Warzone with Memphis and Jerry, and we talked about 10 most injury concerned players for Dynasty and talked about Will Fuller. Specifically, we talked about he's not necessarily injury prone, but if he's not conditioned a certain way, then that's the real issue. You don't tear a hamstring because your hamstring is made of paper mache. You tear your hamstring because the demands you put on it are greater than its capabilities. So it'll be very interesting to see. I wouldn't say I'm concerned with Rondale Moore. I would say I'm intrigued with him and where he'll end up, because and we'll get to this when we talk about one of our tight ends. Like perhaps he has to end up in I mean, as a PT medical nerd, I would love if we got to a point as dynasty owners or fantasy footballers that we knew like the quality, like true quality, not just like perceived reputation of certain medical staffs. Like what if there was like medical staff rankings for each of the NFL teams? Like if he ends up in, you know, a top 5 or 10, like I personally know a guy who he's like one of the best sprint coaches in the world, and he consults with the Chiefs. Like if he ends up on a team that this guy consults with, like that to me has very, very, very positive value for Rondale Moore's health, I think, and his longevity and his availability. You know, the most important ability, it's cliche, but the most important ability in football is availability. And then that sort of piggybacks with like draft capital. Like draft capital isn't magical. It's just like, I was thinking about this earlier. There's an episode of The Office where I think they're doing the Yankee swap or whatever you call that, where you just exchange Christmas gifts. And Michael Scott makes like a joke to the camera. Actually, he doesn't make a joke. He makes a serious comment. That's a joke to the camera. He's like, what better way to show people how much you care about them than putting an exact dollar amount on them? And that's essentially what draft capital is you're betting, like, you know, pick 120 has like a pretty specific value to it. So the guys with the higher draft capital, they just get more chances. Like if Corey Davis, you know, sorry, Jerry, but if Corey Davis was drafted in the 4th round, he would be dust by now. But because he's a first round draft capital guy, he just gets that many more chances. So that's a runaround way of saying, again, draft capital will be important for Rondale Moore. The other thing that I noticed, and again, the only 2 wide receivers I looked up for this pod were Jaylen Waddle and Rondale Moore. And maybe this is a trend, but you know, Jalen Waddle, the height and weight I found for him was 5'10", 183. That's lighter than I am, sad to say. Rondale Moore, 5'9", 180. But what did he get weighed in at his pro day? Like 175 or something?
I just remember he was 5'7". It was more of his height that set Twitter ablaze.
Right.
I think he was 5'7", 180,
You're right.
which from a BMI standpoint, I'm not too worried about it. Now
No.
you were talking about medical staffs. I do know one that's terrible, and that's Jacksonville. They had the most
It's
that's
going to be different this year.
True, with old man Tom Coughlin out of there. We don't know what. We know that he wanted, he being Urban Meyer, wanted to bring in that strength and conditioning coach from Iowa, who had an interesting
background,
an interesting history in his own right. You mentioned the relationship between Chuba and his head coach earlier, but I heard this. You know, you talked about the best ability being durability or availability. I heard that the best 2 abilities are dur and sus. You need to have durability and sustainability in the NFL.
What was that? And I heard that one recently too.
I don't know. I think it was Mark Schlereth, if I remember correctly,
Okay.
but I don't know that to be a fact. All right, we got 2 more guys, and then I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire stuff at the end. Let's just mix these 2 guys together because they have a similar injury and they play the same position. It is Pat Friermuth of Penn State and Brevin Jordan of Miami. I would say tight end prospects 2 and 3. Now, some people have 1, 2, and 1, 3, and vice versa, but I happen to like both. But they both have a similar injury, and now is it the same, or is it the same, different?
I think it's the same, different. And so let's talk about Pat Friermuth real quick. Dude, Penn State we know is a bit of a like they're known for their tight ends in some regard, I believe, and he is the all-time touchdown receiving leader for tight ends at Penn State. He hit that number in the first game of 2020, and then the next game he went down with an injury that was not necessarily on the radar at the time. I think he missed a quarter of that game, came back, and then the next 2 games he had a shoulder what's the term? Shoulder harness. Yeah, I wanted to say collar for some reason.
I was going to go sublux. I was going to go. He had a shoulder subluxation.
Well, yeah, and so that was the injury, and then ultimately after that 4th game, opted out of the season, decided to have season-ending surgery, And I think, bouncing around websites today, I apologize if anybody hears me saying something that sounds exactly like what you wrote. Slide into my DMs. I'll then post credit, but it's all sort of basic information, so I'm not here to cite. But it sounds like he probably had labrum tear and then repaired labrum. And so based on the timing of the injury and when he opted out, like maybe that's what went into his decision was, it's November. If I get this surgery now for 6 months, I'm looking pretty good for training camp just out of the draft. So, good on him if that's how it went down. No concerns there. I guess maybe the only concern is Friermuth is one of the most, 3-down capable tight ends coming into this draft. Like he is a blocker as much as he is a receiver. And so I know what they talked about as far as those 2 games after the injury, he looked, I think they said he looked a little bit tentative engaging in blocks, which makes sense because like the engaging in a block, like the pressure and the stress that puts on the shoulder joint will, drive into the labrum, especially if it's the posterior labrum and posterior capsule that are affected. But as far as like excitement about a guy, look, like I said, like none of these guys are injury prone. Maybe the next guy we'll talk about is the most interesting to be put in that category. But I almost think like as far as dynasty rookie drafts goes, like use the combination of their injury, quote unquote, proneness. And if they then still end up with decent draft capital, like you're getting them on a bargain. Like everybody's going to pay up for Kyle Pitts. Like he's going to go in the top probably 5 or 6 of most rookie drafts, super flex. Whereas Friermuth and Brevin Jordan, they're probably going to be, I don't know. I guess it depends on the premium maybe, but they're going to be second round guys for sure.
Well, I think Friermuth will go in the second round. I don't do mock drafts, but I do project a little bit. I think he's going to be a good fit as a second round pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars and that crack medical staff. And I have Brevin Jordan. He'll probably go around that NFL round 2-3. And in a tight end premium, I have both of these guys going around like the middle of the second round. Yeah. I'm going to wind up with a lot more Friermuth and Jordan than I am Kyle Pitts, just based on where all 3 guys are going to go. All right, last guy, give us a couple of minutes on Brevin Jordan before I hit you with some rapid fire.
Sure. So Brevin Jordan missed 7 games in his 3 total seasons. 2 games were a shoulder arm injury of some sort. He missed the final 4 games of 2019 with a foot ankle injury, which in that season, even though he missed 4 games, he finished 3rd as the finalist for the Mackey Award, which I think did Friermuth win that award?
I don't think there was a tight end award on this planet that didn't go to Kyle Pitts.
Oh, 2 years ago? 2019.
I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast.
Okay, all right. Did you have the Mackey Award for breakfast?
No. I had the Bolitnikov. The Bolitnikov for breakfast. I had the Mackey for lunch.
Somebody's got to – do you have the you got to get the I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast
we can just wrap this up. We can just start doing like movie quotes. I don't care.
Yeah, no. So anyway, Brevin Jordan, and then this season started out. I believe he was their leading receiver in receptions and yards before he injured his shoulder and arm. This year, like nothing that led to surgery. Like my only thoughts, comments, and questions on this guy is like we know what is the perception of Miami? Like it is party central. Like who doesn't want to go to Miami, enjoy the beach, enjoy the drinks, enjoy the late nights, enjoy whatever. Perhaps he's just a product of, look, these guys in college, like I remember what college was like. These guys are kids. They're probably having some later nights, some less hydrated nights than they should, as opposed to somebody who goes to maybe a Stanford or whatever. I'd be curious to see. What?
I'm calling a timeout. There's like no bigger
30-second or minute.
I don't know. There's like no bigger party school in America than like Madison, Wisconsin. The little dive university that I went to, Ball State University. We had a hell of a reputation at one time. There was this notorious gentleman's magazine known as Playboy that had
Heard of it.
that I have too, and they had Ball State University's Dill Street, which is no longer with us. Sad to say, but they had it ranked as the sixth rank. So just because you live in Miami and go hard doesn't mean much. So just long and short of it, you're not concerned about too many of these rookies. And
No.
we'll wrap this up by saying we'll let the NFL tell us exactly what they think about them based on where they draft them. That should be a bigger concern with us than their injury history to date.
Correct. Yeah, we can have all our analyses we want, but we talk about like counting things twice. I think draft capital plus anything is counting that plus anything twice. Like it's all going, like their character is probably going into their draft capital. Maybe something to think about is like you said with Jacksonville's previous medical staff. Like the organization that drafts them. Henry Ruggs going to the Raiders last year. I was like, holy crap, is Al Davis still in charge over there, just drafting a guy with speed before CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy? Like, think about those things, but otherwise, the draft capital is going to tell the story.
I cannot wait for the Las Vegas Raiders to draft Rondale Moore and send the world
And then sign another veteran.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, all right. So I want to hit you with some rapid fire real quick to wrap this up. First of all, thank you for jumping on and bailing us out without Dallas able to be here. You are a good member of the squad. So real quick, give us the rookie. Just give us a name. Give us the rookie you're not leaving your rookie mock draft, or excuse me, your rookie actual drafts without. One name.
I think Rashad Bateman.
Rashad Bateman. Okay, now is this just because that you project him to be dominant at the next level, or you think is this a draft capital thing? Real quick, what do you see in Bateman?
So, like I said, I'm not a film grinder. I have just watched and listened to enough at this point to start to have like my own feelings about guys, and he just seems like he's got a good combination of talent and size in the draft class, where it sounds like a couple of the guys near the top are I don't want to say undersized because like they've proven their size enough for college, but I just think he's going to be a value. Like I'm not taking Bateman as the wide receiver 2 probably, but I feel like he's probably going to be available around wide receiver 4, 5, maybe 6, where he easily could be 2 for anybody. Like it's like 1 is Jamar Chase, and then it's 2 through 5 or 6. So I don't know where you put like Waddle, Moore, Bateman, Devonta Smith. They're probably all in the same tier for me, and I think Bateman has the size quality that the other guys don't.
I need to make sure the shirt's up over with our friends at Viridian Global, but we're all landing spot dependent. There's a couple of guys, it really wouldn't matter where they went. Jamar Chase being one of those guys. I'm not ever going to have the A.J. Brown thing happen to me again, where we all went, oh my God, he landed in Tennessee. This is a horrible. Dude, A.J. Brown's killing people. He would have killed people anywhere he went, but I'm with you. For me, I have my own rankings. You can see those over at Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. And I will update those the minute the draft process is over. I like who I like, the pro days, where, to your point earlier, double counting. All right, give us a guy that you're not going to be leaving your rookie drafts with. And this could be based off draft capital, reputation, just like acquisition cost versus what you're comfortable using to acquire, just whatever.
I mean, honestly, like I don't think I'm going to have any Najee Harris just because of the draft picks I have in my leagues. I don't know what I have. The league I'm in with Maddie,
that's like a humble brag. Rookies. It's like a humble brag. You're like,
well, no, and it's not even that. It's like I have the 101 in 2 leagues, but otherwise I have nothing earlier than 108. Like, so it's going to be I'm getting Trevor Lawrence with the 101 in those leagues, and then 108, 110, 111 I think are the only other first round picks I have across my 3 leagues. So I'll probably be hoping for at 108 in that league. I'll probably be hoping for Javonte Williams or Travis Etienne to be there. If I have to grab a second quarterback because one of the top 4 falls there, I will, because I'm not getting burned by picking my guy 6 months before the first game of the season again. Hashtag Keyshawn Vaughn. And then 110 will be something. 111, like hopefully I get a Mac Jones or whomever there, but.
Well, you've allowed this to go down a rabbit hole, and we'll wrap it up with this. I really like in a superflex tight end premium league. I really like just about any first round pick. And if it's
Yeah.
tight end premium, but here's the thing. I feel really good about the first 18 picks in this draft. You
Yeah.
know, the hit rate on these rookies has went up and up and up, and I think this is going to be a baller class. I think anything inside the top 10 is just perfect. And everybody's like, "Well, why do you like the top 10 so much?" I'm like, because it guarantees me in a super flex. I do want to make sure I
Yeah.
preface that in a super flex, I'm guaranteed one of the 5 quarterbacks or one of the 3 running backs or Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. If
Yeah.
I've got a top 10 pick, I'm guaranteed one of those 10 players on my team. And that's where I want to be. I don't want to have to be guessing between the Jamar, the Rondale Moores and the Rashad Batemans and all these other guys. I will when I have to, when I'm absolutely
Mhm.
forced to make those decisions, and I'll be doing my rankings the same as everybody else. But man, what a great year and what a great guest, man. Well, you're like a quasi guest. You're kind of a guest. Now, I know you're laying out, and I'm going on vacation next week. So the week of the 3rd through the 11th or whatever, I'll be on vacation. But the week after that, we're going to start peeling back the onion over on the big bet as it relates to this rookie draft. You ready to get down some wagers on this
Oh
NFL
yeah.
rookie draft?
Yeah, I got the itch. The DWZ bet chat has it's alive as of late. Those guys, they go.
I just ignore them right now. They're talking about this thing called basketball and
Yeah, I don't
the
get it.
tournament. And there's a tournament. Did you know there's a tournament
There's a
related to
team with the
basketball?
word oral in it. I'm not betting on
Oral.
anything with the name
With, with,
oral.
with with a name like Oral, you should never open your mouth. Well, anyway, I'm
No.
glad this guy came by to open his mouth. His name is Dr. Kyle Balzer, and you can follow him at DWZ underscore Dr. PT. And make sure you stick around. We're going to have the FF SmackDown on Monday into Tuesday, the Dynasty Warzone Tuesday into Wednesday. We have got a lot of great stuff coming up for you as it relates to this rookie class and fantasy football in general. But until next time, that man's name is Dr. Kyle. My name is Memphis. And remember, here at the DWZ Network of Pods, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here real soon with more Dynasty goodness. Thanks for tuning in.